And where we are at the Cougar Land podcast with Monty Stokes, who's back after many, many years. Friends with Dan Frigo, who may be coming on here, and Richard Collins, who just came out. And you've been checking out the podcast, taking you down memory lane a bit, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, it's. I think I was watching Richard's, and he's exactly right. I turned Derek's on for about 15 minutes. I said I'm gonna watch for a few minutes, and next thing I know, I watched the whole show, and then ended up watching Lisa's, and then just saw Richard's yesterday. So that was definitely brought me down memory lane, and talk about pulling up old pictures, going through the computer, and I think I sent you a couple that I just happened to find on my computer. It was pretty neat to see.
Those. I gotta find those. I didn't see them in my email yet. I will look for them. I don't know where they went. But see what the whole point of this is that you're finding out what happened after. Because when you lived in Vicenza, your friends would come and they'd be there for a year, 2 years, 3 years, or be leaving that year that you got there. And then, like, where did this guy or gal go? You don't have their phone number. You couldn't get a hold of them. They might move to the States, BOQ, and then before they got a phone number, you might not have had a phone number in Italy, and then it's $8 or $20 a minute to call across the ocean back in those days before we had the internet. Now we can do this. So not only was cost prohibitive, but you like, whatever happened to so-and-so? And then we didn't have Facebook when you got back. So maybe you ran into somebody in the military, which I'm sure you did.
Oh, without a doubt. You know, you go to college and you're away. You leave Vicenza and you're busy doing your own life, getting your own career. And like you said, it's hard to stay connected without all the social media and gadgets. But somehow, hook or crook, it just seems to happen. And I remember I was in ROTC in college, and similar to what you said, Len, about being in the Navy and telling your stories. Well, we'd go on ROTC trips, and everywhere we'd go, I would, inadvertently or advertently know somebody. Went to DC and ran into Jim Cavoli, and I think we were in Texas and saw Tara and Liz, and all the guys at my ROTC was like, how the hell do you know all these people? And well, you tell them about Vicenza, they don't believe you.
Oh, that's the thing. I visited a guy I did a podcast with from the Navy who was on during NAM while we were in high school. And he's like, I love this podcast. Come visit me, because we had the same job and the same view of life. And so I visited him in Kansas. And then I'm like, oh, let's go meet my buddies. And I had some buddies from the Navy. There's like, wow, you know a lot of people. All of a sudden I go, wait, there's another guy from Vicenza. He's like, damn, you know a lot of people. Like, you come to someone else's town and you're like the mayor of the past. And they're like, how does this person know everybody to a state or a place he's never been? That's just like, that trips him out, because Vicenza people dispersed all over the world. They're not just.
It's definitely a unique experience and of learning and how to make friends, keep friends, and being resilient, moving from one place to another, and making new friends. But like you said, you ran into Richard and Charlene in San Francisco.
Yep.
I've got so many stories like that. I was in the military, in the Air Force for a while, and we were in Puerto Rico doing some counter narcotics things, and I ran into Freddie Waldron.
Yeah.
We were both lieutenants at in Puerto Rico at the same time. So it was neat to see and hang out with him for a while.
See, that's like, you're like, wow, I wasn't expecting you here. Didn't happen to me a lot, because California was a little far and it was one of the more expensive states. I think a lot of people, they came back with their parents, and if they didn't go off to college on a trajectory through the military, they might have lived somewhere near a base, like
right.
Somewhere on the East Coast where airborne bases and Army infantry, and if their parents were officers, maybe the Pentagon, Washington, Delaware, those kind of areas. Now, having had that Rolling Stone gathers no moss kind of lifestyle, a lot of them probably just set off and started pushing off into other parts of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I think. Good.
Yeah, without a doubt, and you try to explain stuff like that to people. We were talking offline about, I would tell my wife about Vicenza and some of the things we've done, like you talked about your Navy buddies, what you did, and they didn't believe it. And I said, Nora, you gotta watch some of these, some of these podcasts, and you might understand me. I mean, we've only been married 30 years, but
Oh yeah,
you know,
I mean, people's kids are watching these because they want to hear what their dad was like. One person I did with because their father's passed on, and it's like, they want to know, and this is the chance they can hear that. I mean, otherwise they just have like some old army picture in our days. There's dad and his 10 cronies sitting over there in this war or that barracks or that officers club or that housing project for the military. Oh yeah, that was Mr. Smith, and you get a snippet, but you don't get to hear the talking, walking story that you get here. What years? What years were you there again? You did tell me, but for people listening.
yes, 77 to 81.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I was going to tell you is that when you go back to the States and you start your own life in college and whatever, you kind of lose track of folks. Well, my wife and I were going to Italy, and I said, well, I'm going to look Richard up, and she says, Monty, it's been, you haven't seen each other in 20 years. I said, well, you know what? It'll be like, you're not going to understand this. I said, it's going to be like, never, the time never separated. And she says, well, how are you going to recognize him? It's been 20 years. I said, it's Richard. So, Richard and I talked and made arrangements to meet at Piazza Erbe in Verona. And that was a whole funny story about, well, I'm looking for Richard, he's looking for me. And we finally see each other, and neither one, well, he didn't change. I probably changed quite a bit, but he didn't change. And we're sitting there having dinner. And I think I was in, at that time, I was in Seattle, working in Seattle. And so I said, hey, so where's your sister Charlene? Where does she have, where's she at now? And the light bulb went up, above him. We're in Verona. I'm asking about his sister. I had just moved to Seattle about 6-7 months before. Mm-hmm. And he goes, you know what? He says, she's in Seattle. So we.
She lives down the street from you, but you just haven't realized that you've been using the same supermarket.
She worked 4 blocks from me, and so when we got back from Italy, we reconnected, and it was one of those things. Her friends became my friends, and we've stayed in touch this whole time, and it's been a real neat experience.
That is bizarre. So I know he was telling me you guys took a cruise together. You guys went there for vacation in Italy with Rich, and I think Dan Frigo was with you guys.
Yeah. So that's a whole nother story. So Richard's gotten involved in sailing. I just moved up here to Alabama from Florida, and got into boating. So a good friend of mine, he's a sailboat captain, and ended up. We've been taking these sail trips regularly. So I asked Richard, I said, hey, would you be interested in coming to the BVI, the British Virgin Islands? And so he said, sure. He says, let's do it. And I wonder if Dan would be interested. So that started our sailing routine with Richard. Is that the Dan, Richard, and the wives, and me and Nora, and Mike Albertson and Joanne Albertson, the ship captain. We rented a sailboat in the BVI and sailed it. Had a blast, and it was like old home week. And brought out the stories, and was it 2018? We had another sail trip in Sardinia. And
Mm-hmm.
Richard has that tour group. I tell you what, if anybody out there is interested in it's not a plug or whatever, but I guess it is a plug for.
It should be. Might as well be. Yeah.
He hooked us up with a great sailboat. We went to Sardinia, cruised Sardinia and Corsica, and we stayed at this place called Parco Olivi in Sardinia. Just an amazing place. I think you were telling about when your younger days, you want discotheques and party.
Yeah.
As you get older, you want quiet and sedate. Mm-hmm. Well, this place was in the middle of nowhere. The owners treated us like royalty, and it was just a great trip. But so we've done a bit of sailing, and now Richard's got a sailboat on Lake Garda, and looking forward to getting on that eventually. We were supposed to have been there in June, except for this
Mm-hmm.
little Corona thing.
Well, I think the sailing thing's beautiful. Of course, I was in the Navy and I cruised all around the world. It was a different type of experience, but similar. It's all in the water. I will say, you know, Sardinia is a beautiful place. One of the people we went to school with, Mark Dickey, I think he does property management out there for like vacation rentals and stuff like that, if I remember correctly. He used to run the golf course for one of those like 6-star hotels out there. So he's had the life living on Sardinia, the Emerald Coast. I mean, that place, you go to some of those hotels, and even if you're making good money, when you find out the price point, you're like, wow, that's my mortgage for a year, for a night. Like, what room could be so magical that I have to pay that much money? But there is affordable options too, probably an Airbnb as opposed to Cala di Volpe or one of these fancy hotels. But I always wanted to go there.
There's another hookup for the Cougars.
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, there's Alan Bruzzo that's got a winery from Cabruzzos in Suave area, I believe, near Suave Castle. You know, where they make wine and stuff. You know.
Yeah, I think wasn't he the one during the reunion that he had us all to his winery?
Oh, that's probably him. It was up on a hill. Was it up on a mountain, kind of?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was beautiful. He used to go to Vicenza. Yeah.
He played guitar. That's him, Alan Bruzzo.
Yeah.
There you go. That makes sense. Now, I used to hang out with him. His dad had just come there. He was working at Bechtel, the nuclear company, and then he had dual citizenship, so he bought this vineyard. And, you know, it was a big place, and I'd go hang out with him. And to me, the country life at then, I wasn't ready. I like hung out like, okay, what do I do? We drank all the wine. I have a headache because it's got wine. It's not another thing you could drink all day like beer. And then like there's like no stores to run off to. He's like, well, let's go get some eggs out of the chicken coop. So that's how we're going to get some food. I'm like, okay, I guess we're on the keto diet. But you know, it's for me, I'm like, I want to be close to Vicenza because that's where it's all happening, which really by today's standards, I don't know. I joined the Navy and I go, oh yeah, I love you know, I didn't like California yet, but I lived in the booming San Francisco area and a lot of nightlife, a lot of stuff that you hear about but could never see, and concerts and all kinds of things were so accessible as opposed to Vicenza. So I go, yeah, but Vicenza was so great. And I go back and I hang out with Rosanna Bonamego. I think her brother might have been in around your era, John Bonamego.
Yeah, John Bonamego.
You guys might have played football together or something, or played some sports together. And now he's a coach for the Rams. So the LA Rams, yeah. So he stayed in coaching. He went and pursued that. But the Bonamegos were there a long time too. I go back and I'm about 20, so a couple years out. I'm in the military. So I'm like, oh, I'm just like these GIs on the base. This is kind of interesting. I'm not here as a student coming from college. I don't have that civilian feel. How's this feel as a soldier now or you know, a sailor? So I went there, visited my dad, visited some of the teachers, and then I spent my time going out and just having fun, going to the old bars I used to go to and going to certain nightclubs. And it was a blast. But I remember visiting my parents sitting there in the countryside waiting for an hour and a half for the bus to show up to get me close to post. I'm going, this sucks. I want to go back to California. And I think it was around that time that I really realized I loved California at that time. I did not feel it at the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I go, there was so much action, you know, so much activity. And, you know, I have 20 different nightclubs, 80 different bars. So, you know, it's a big city. It's rock and roll. And, you know, I come back and then I'm like, okay, I'm happy to be back. But then there's times where I miss little things, but I kind of keep it in perspective because we are the memory. You know, it's a memory. It's the place you can go stand by an old statue where you threw a wild party, but now it's just a statue. So I think that's what this is capturing with the podcast, is bringing you and me back to that time. And we can all reconnect and have that time through the podcast. That's what I'm feeling through so far.
You know, bits and pieces of what people have said, like Derek was mentioning that he went back and he was walking through the caserna, through the base, or the post, you guys call it, because you guys were Army. And, you know, my dad was 5th ATAF, he was Air Force. And he said that he was like a ghost because when we were there, you know, it was, you couldn't pass and go anywhere without knowing somebody or going to meet somebody. But we've been back several times since, and it was a weird experience that you're there, but it's completely different. You know, it's like you just said, it's the people that make the place, and not the, you know, and if you live, you can be in the crappiest place, and I've been deployed to some crappy places, but had some great people. And Vicenza was just a perfect combination with a great place and great people. And and when you're there, I don't think many of us realized it. That the previous podcast, you said that we're always wanting to go back and see that movie. For me, I remember, everybody had bubble yum and
I remember that.
the new shoes,
Whatever came in from the States. Skateboarding was hot back then. Howell skateboards. They were selling them over at the Four Seasons.
Or be able to watch, turn the Super Bowl on instead of we had to go to the MWR on the silly ass TV in the all closed in, but just to watch the Super Bowl at the super late at night.
But we didn't get all the games. You get the games on radio feed, but when I remember those time in the 70s, like the Officers Club, my dad and everybody over there, that place was packed. Everybody was like double fisting their beers and and I'm trying to go over and talk to my parents. It's a different time. You're trying to talk to your parents for this little kid, and they're sitting up in these high rolling chairs at the Officers Club by the bar, and you're like getting an ash, someone's old person had a few drinks in your hair, burning a hole in your hair. Like, hey, get off me! I'm trying to grab my dad. They're like, yeah, I didn't tell you one time, So, but I remember how packed that would get. I remember it was the Steelers versus somebody one year. And they, that was a big day. Like everybody on post, wherever they could pipe it in, the Super Bowl was like the ultimate thing to watch. I mean, it was the only current exciting event. And somehow SEB got it fed in and people could watch it around that rear projection TV. They're like, the excitement, because it's like water in the desert, man. It's like a bottle of water. Everyone's all excited.
Yeah.
And so that I do remember that. And you were there. I mean, did you live in Villaggio, or did you live off on the Economy with the Italians? And it's funny, we call it the Economy. But.
Yeah, my dad was with the Air Force, so we didn't live in Villaggio. We lived, now it'd be the back gate, but where the front gate was,
okay,
you made the left, and then the first left, and right down that road. It was right down the road from Dan's house, but it was within biking distance to the base and a biking distance to Villaggio.
You lived off the other side, the other gate, near the hospital when you came in by the hospital.
Now the base is switched. The main gate is where the back gate used to be, and vice versa for people that haven't been there in a while.
Yeah,
But I ran into a GI though when he we were talking, and I'm probably lifeguarding and probably whining about I wish I was in the States, and the guy, one of my buddies, he said, if you're not where you're at, you're nowhere. And that's really stuck. And it's several people in the different podcasts have said similar things. And it's so true that you learn that especially going back and seeing that you got to live now and with the people that you're at and where you're at, or you're going to be miserable and you're
passing
really
you by. You're doing a podcast about it 30 years later going, I wish I was there for like last 30 years. What did you do it then? It's just to have that foundation, the skills, the tools to meet new people, create rapport, and understand how to overcome obstacles. And, like you said, you thought you were missing out. I mean, I was into skateboarding. I was looking at magazines of Dogtown and Z-Boys, these guys that are setting off this radical surfing skateboard culture that took over America and California. And a lot of stuff was coming out of California, whether it be rock music or, movies or, new sports trends or style. That would come across the world, and we would get a piece of it. Maybe not all of it. We'd want the whole thing. If they're wearing this, I want this, like you said, the bubble yum or something. So someone would go, oh yeah, you're missing out, man. They have this and they have that and they have this. And yeah, it seemed like, you go back to the States for a summer visit, you go to Foodland, you get a limited batch of things. You come to the States and you just walk in a drugstore and they have 10 times the selection of candy. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to eat all of it. It's like, I remember stupid things like we'd come back and I'm like, Dad, I want 2 or 3 Big Macs. I need to get them all. Like I was going to put that energy to take back to with me, right? Germany had it. Germany had McDonald's. You'd ask a friend, could you put one in a cooler and drive it back for me? This cold ass, it's like, hey man, you're where are you, Minnesota? Could you drive one to California next few days, drive me a burger? No thanks. No thank you. But as a kid, you were craving something Americana. Music was a big deal. Community was a big deal. You got to bond with people differently because you were living in that culture. You get to know people a different way, right? We were all on one big trip somewhere else together. You're
and the school did a really good job. including your dad, you did a really good job opening our eyes to that, and we should have been more receptive to it. I mean, we went to, I remember going to a trip in, they took the class to Rome and Assisi, and it was an immersion thing where I don't know how, it was a week or two, but I just remember it was a great trip. A bunch of young kids went touring around to see the mosaics in the Sistine Chapel, and stayed in, go see St. Francis of Assisi's church, and stayed in a monastery. It's some great experience. You know, who can say you jump on a train and just end up someplace, end up in Venice, and go, a bunch of kids playing around St. Mark's Square without their parents, you know, just.
Yeah, there's that freedom. I think the parents are like, yeah, well, it's a very peaceful country. Can't get in the trouble you get into back home. You know, it's not like the movie that was out during then, The Warriors in New York, because New York was really wild and, you know, wasn't the super gentrified place it was back then. So yeah, it changed. So like, okay, well, Italy, there's no real criminals on the street. We're not down in southern Italy where there's more crime. We're up north, just go get crazy. And
until later on, until it was the late, I guess, was it 81, 82 when Dozier was kidnapped? With the Red Brigade. But besides that, and I ended up meeting him at Eglin Air Force in Hobart Field. I was at the Dynamics of International Terrorism class, and he was telling this story, and he asked a question or whatever about Italy or whatever during one of the breaks, and he and I had a conversation about Verona and Vicenza, and he couldn't believe that I was from, you know, Vicenza. So it was neat, and he was a good speaker, and explained it was all his fault. You know, he screwed up. His wife told him, "Don't open the door," and he opened it, and the terrorists came in and scooped him up.
Yeah, it's I guess, you know, that I remember that time. I was still a little kid. I didn't care. I was still off post. I could speak Italian, so I could disappear. I speak Italian fluently. I'm gonna just vanish into the ciao, ma cosa vuoi? You know, it's like I'll be Italian, right? So
per favore.
Yeah, that's right. You know, a lot of us learned Italian, learned another language, and you come back to the States and you tell people, I was in Italy, blah, blah, blah. They're like, huh? Their life hasn't started. They think that's something they're going to do in their future, perhaps. And then, you know, the other thing is that it turned out so many military people. There's a lot of people in high level, and I said this before, high level places like Cavoli and, you know, Del Rosso and all these other people that are, you know, generals and admirals and stuff from our high school. We didn't know that this wasn't an ROTC school, but still you know, being on a base, being around that order and that lifestyle did push a lot of people to go in that direction. I went in, you went in. I mean, how long were you in service for?
I was active duty for 10 years and reserve for 11. And I retired right before my 06 board. It was competing with my civilian job. So I had to make a choice and decided to concentrate on the civilian job. My brother, he flew C-130s and he taught flight school for the Air Force, and he's flying for Southwest Airlines now. So if you ever see a tall, bald-headed guy that looks kind of like me, it's my brother. I got a little more hair than he does.
I'll just ask him, okay, can I get some of those companion tickets? I've got those before, but the thing is that you might be on standby for 2 days and have to pay $500 for a hotel because you can't get booked on that flight. So not always, they're cool, but if they work, you know,
they're cool when you're retired. When you're retired and you're not pressed for time. I've used them a few times, and we got bumped off in Las Vegas, and that was a horrible place to get bumped off of.
Yeah, well, it's like Space A. I can fly Space A in CONUS, so I could get on. But you know, if I go to Sacramento, maybe hop on a C-130 to go to Hawaii or something, I could also get stuck there for a week and a half because there's no flights coming back and forth. Or I got to take one and land in Michigan, go over to Virginia, bounce back to Texas, and then get back to California. That's the way that works. It's not that easy. I know we flew one back one year to get back into Aviano. That was scary as hell. But, you know, that's something that's there. It's an option, but it's a tough one. It's like, hey, cool, free flights, but just for me, not for my wife. So do you have that option too?
Yeah, we haven't used the Space A yet. We have so many points with Delta, and then with my brother. I probably shouldn't have said Delta with my brother He'll probably
Ooh.
watch this and say, "What the hell
Hit
are
him
you
up.
talking
Hit him up. No, I'm kidding.
about Southwest?" But and now with Corona, we're just pretty much driving, wherever we want to go, and that way. But I got to ask you, Len, in Vicenza, we had Army and Air Force. We didn't have any Navy. What the hell? How'd you join the Navy?
Well, we did have one Navy guy. He was working at the TV station. That was the Poplinski.
Ah.
Yeah, but I wasn't that. The Navy wasn't even attractive to me at the time. I hadn't even, if I grew up around it, maybe that would have been my first thing, just like a lot of people were go-to. But I'd get enough mischief on base with MPs and CID always trying to, frame me up for something I didn't do. They just didn't like my attitude. I wasn't doing anything. I had no great money or resources to be a criminal of any level. And I wasn't a thief, and I wasn't there to bully people. But just my cocky attitude, I guess. So I always had a beef with them. So when it came time to join the military, I'm like, screw that. CID's probably still waiting for me the moment I sign up. They're meet me in boot camp, And then my dad was an officer in the Marines, and I wanted to do my own thing. I tried to go to the Air Force, and they asked me if I'd smoked weed, and I said, of course. And they go, more than once? I go, yeah, why not? Everybody does. And they go, oh, we don't do that here. I'm like, okay. So maybe I met the wrong recruiter, but that doesn't really matter because I didn't join the Navy to smoke any weed anyways. It's just stuff you tried as a kid. And, I was nowhere near. I mean, shoot, marijuana is legal most of the states now, and I don't smoke it. I don't care. It was just an experiment. I wasn't like the movies of Reefer Madness or some of the crazy crap that you used to see back in the day, like someone taking LSD, one of those hippie movies, and they look at their hands and there's 5 snakes and they jump out a window. I mean, it was nothing even close to that caliber. I was just non-conforming in my own way. And I knew that joining the military, that I could get stationed places and try them out. And that's what I got from that. So it did end up being the Navy. The Air Force wouldn't let me in. I just wanted to go in and do broadcasting. And I go, well, I guess I got to go a little hardcore. I'll go over here to the Navy. And the Navy ended up being really cool in its own way. I never would have guessed that the things I would like about it, it got me to where I wanted. It got me to California to see what all this stuff I watched on movies and videos and stuff in Italy. So
you got into broadcasting. Were you on land, or did you do ship time?
Oh, no, I didn't do broadcasting. I was a signalman, actually, which they don't even have anymore. Yeah. I was in communications, and I'd have other duties, firefighting, police, other things that I would do, because a ship is your own world, pretty much. So you have to learn other things, not just your MOS, but other things that you add to that. Because we can't have firefighters in the middle of the ocean. You need to know how to fight all kinds of different, fires, like a helicopter fire or an engine fire or a missile fire. So you had to have all this different training. And of course, all your NBC training too, right?
Right.
So you had all that, and you had to be self-sustained. People had to be able to do their job to keep this thing running. You couldn't just, can you tell us we're 2,000 miles off the coast of Hawaii? It's not going to happen, right?
Right.
They call the fire department, it's not going to happen. You need to be self-sufficient, right? Go on.
And that in itself seals a bunch of bonds that, just like at school and high school, when you're a limited team, limited with your own people that you're around, you had to make do with what you had. And on a ship, I would imagine on steroids, you're the police force, the fire department, everything.
Well, that's the same thing. And it's like you talked about being stationed somewhere that may not have been so cool. Like there was some island, Diego Garcia, where some people may have passed through. And for a guy, there's like 5 women, 500 guys. It's not, if you're single, it's not very good. You're just on an island in the middle of nowhere. You're young. You're looking for either to get married or have a girlfriend or whatever. You're kind of stuck there in total frustration, just drinking beer on an island. And then the best that you get by is just roasting each other, having jokes. Like I'm still friends with guys that, we were cruising up by the Aleutian Islands, near the North Pole. And we're just cracking jokes. I'm still friends with those guys. But if I tell that story, that one time I was by the North Pole with my friends, it's like, yeah, sure you did. I'll get it on video. but that's the thing, right? Where was the worst place you were stationed, or like the less exciting place that you had to make the best of?
Well, I didn't like the Middle East.
Yeah.
So I was after 9/11, I brought a command element to Qatar, and we did jump off or drop off spots with our airplanes to Bagram and Kandahar Tajikistan, just a few places, but that whole area is it's not the area necessarily, it's the people. And I was surrounded by great people, and the Arab folks were our counterparts were fun, fun to hang out with, and good people. Kept us safe. So it was all good.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing too, though. So we're in the military, we get out. I'm doing some filming at my friend's gym. I'm hanging out with guys from Tajikistan that are fighters. I'm hanging out with guys from Dagestan. And they're like, you see them portrayed on the movie one way, and you get there and you're in your military mode. And then you get back and you go, what is the truth?
Yeah.
Because you're somewhere in the middle, right? I mean, I think people are different ways, different places. If you're in a hard culture like us versus them, it's going to get a different world, right? I didn't get out and lose my military bearing. Some people might say, oh, I'm different now. I choose this way. I'm like, okay, it's up to you, man. That's just the way it is. But there's a lot of people that are still like the way they were in the military to me when I meet them.
Well, let me tying it back to Vicenza though, with what kind of led to certain things, and the teachers. Your dad being a coach. And I told you, we were texting back and forth that I remember as a freshman going there. I was a scrawny kid and never thought I could get on a sports team. And I remember your dad saying, "Monty, you need to get on a team." And he was my PE teacher for the first year. And my first time I was doing well on the runs and whatever we needed to do. And he gives me a B, and a B or a C. It was like, what the hell? What did I get a B for? And he says, well, you need to be more involved. Be more involved in school. You got to this and that. You got to participate. And he really was an encouragement to get into sports. And so I got moved. I went into wrestling and football, and Richard got me involved in Richard and Dan got me involved in soccer, which all led to working out and getting physical, and all, one led after another, and it really helps you downstream.
Yeah.
And then one person's probably gonna, if he sees this, is going to be shocked. Is Sai Hakim. I don't think he cared for me too much, but I tell you what, he was so tough, and I don't think I appreciated it then. But English and everything you do, no matter what you do in life, it's going to be a key component. And I can't tell you how many times I was put in a situation, whether I was writing operations plans or working on command staff and doing things, and writing was so important, and it really helped in my career. So if he's listening, if he hasn't already had a heart attack and heard me say something positive, and I really appreciate those two guys.
It's funny where teachers are and where you are at that point in your life. You know what I mean? A lot of people have had kids and they've seen them reflections of themselves and they've seen them grow up. And, who did you hang out with? You hung out with Rich, you hung out with Frigo. Name some of the names of your era, like people that were around the school.
Oh, Gregan, Steve Jerome, Stephen Paul. Steve got me involved in umpiring. I heard Derek talking about umpiring. And Derek, if you're listening, it was Bo Roberts, that guy that was the fast pitch guy.
Yeah.
So Bo was a big guy, and he was a fast pitch softball player, and he was with 5th ATAF, the Air Force guys, and he worked with my dad. So when I was officiating, I remember the day I was officiating behind the plate for him, and he would make that ball do all kinds of things, and at incredible speeds. And my concern was always that his catcher, and I remember his catcher's name, they called him Rat. But that's all he had to do was step out of the way in 1 second, and I was a smoldering hole because
you're like, I don't want to get hit by that thing. Yeah.
Oh, and half the time I probably closed my eyes and called strikes because it was coming in so fast. But back there by the tennis courts and the softball field, that was another thing you did. But people we hung out with, besides Jim Cavoli, the Cat sisters, Debbie and Linda. The Pelleritos. I mean, it was just a big community.
Where did you
Sharp.
take any good teen club trips or any memorable sports trips that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, I think that we had ski trips. We went someplace, was it Austria or someplace that one time I can remember that there was in Christmas there was some kind of festival that the guys would dress up in Harvest Festival and they would whip the evil out of you before Christmas. And they warned us on the bus that they would, they're going to do something like that. They'll scare the evil out of you.
Strange bondage Santa Claus roaming the streets.
Oh my God! Well, I remember walking down the road with all the teens and these guys came running by and smacked us with a I don't know, it's a limb or a whip or whatever it was right across our legs, and the evil went right out of me then. But that was one of the trips. I remember good, really nice ski trips. The Rome and Assisi trip, and all the sports trips. I mean, how do you explain that to people that you hop on you're playing football or wrestling or basketball or whatever you're doing, and you're taking an overnight couchette train down to Rome or Naples or one year we flew to Sicily.
Yeah, I did too. To play football.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's exactly, and we're walking through the airport with our gear and everybody thought we were some pros.
That makes me think of a
I got stationed in Comiso. I was there in 89 to, was it 88? Oh, 88 to 90. Yeah, 88 to 90. And right there in Comiso, right on Sicily. That was another, not a bad assignment.
Yeah, one of the better ones.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the military, you get station places. I have friends that still, like Derek and other people that work MWR or stay in as a GS supporting role. My friend's in charge of port ops in Hawaii right now. He got out as E8 and senior chief. But he was in charge of Naples not too long ago. He's like, I'm coming back here. He's from Oregon. He's like, no, we're not going to stay there. We're going to leave again and go back to Europe. And that's how it is. Like he loved Italy now that when we were there, we had Yugoslavia was communist. All that side, you could not travel to Serbia, Croatia, and all those other places. Now they're all open. So that adds another dimension to it too, right? But there's people that still live there. There's pros and cons of it. There's pros and cons anywhere. But there is something that you miss about it because it reminds you when you were younger and when you had your friends. How many of your friends have you run into recently that, or started communicating with that it's been a while from that time?
Well, other than Dan and Richard, Jim Cavoli, we met up with in, was it Milan? I think, it was Milan because Dan was there. We were getting ready to fly back out and Jim happened to be traveling through at the same time as that we were there. I was at, I think I was at F.E. Warren Air Force Base and ran into, I don't remember the Wynotts, Wade and Wyndham. I ran into Wade. I think he worked in the hospital. So that was kind of neat. And Wyndham and I have texted a couple times back and forth or stayed in touch on Facebook a couple times. So that was neat. But the other thing with going back to Vicenza is we all had our jobs, our summer jobs, or the jobs to make money for our next
summer
trip
hire.
Or next
summer hire. Yeah,
summer hire would. I remember Dan and I worked in the bakery, in the base bakery for a while because I think we were both trying to get buy cameras for Cy Hakeem's camera class. And
it was that or a boombox. It was something to buy at the Phoenix.
Yeah,
we worked there
one of the two because I had a boombox too, and I probably was raising money for one of the two. But Dan would swing by with his Vespa and pick me up at god awful time in the morning. And I remember one time it was cold. We get into the parking lot at the bakery and made it all the way in safely. We hit this little tiny patch of ice. And the Vespa slides out, and it was where we're going slow. Next thing you know, the bike's sliding, he's sliding, I'm sliding, and we get up and just, what could you do? You just started laughing, put the bike on the kickstand, and went in and make some donuts.
That's how it works. Some people like that gig because they had the donuts. I remember a couple of friends working there. But he never turned to you at the donut shop because one day I'm going to be something big at Disneyland. You had no idea what you were going to be. My point is, the funny joke of that story is like, I'm going to be a really big deal. Like, you didn't know what you were going to be. You had imagination.
Yeah.
Some people did. Some people go, I'm going to be like my dad or my mom or whoever that they're there with that's in the service. And a lot of people wanted to pursue that because it just made sense. You could continue that homogenous kind of lifestyle that you knew. And then
Yeah.
it changes. It's like, to be a civilian, there's a whole new adapting way. I mean, you learned that probably working in corporate America, I'm sure, the difference between that and the military. When you get out and you're
Oh,
like, this is different, that they're not listening to me the way they did then when I had these bars on my shoulder or whatever, right? Like, now I have to learn the art of persuasion and keeping a stiff upper lip because I got to get this project done. I need to learn rapport building skills. I need to learn this. Like, you had some of those, but you also learn that there's a different flow as a civilian, right?
well, that's true, and I think some of those earlier jobs, you realize what you don't want to do. You know, you don't want to get up at 2 or 3 in the morning and make donuts. Or one summer, I think it was my first summer, I worked in the mailroom, the post office, and we made those runs down to Milan or over to Milan to get the mail, and then you come back and you're throwing mail, or you know, you knew what jobs you didn't want to do. Unfortunately, I guess my junior and senior year, I got into lifeguarding. That wasn't a bad gig.
That was one of mine too. I was a lifeguard for years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a bad. You know, my brother tells a story that he with his freshman year in college, he went and as we all do the freshman year of college, sow some oats and have some fun, and he came back for the summer break, and my cousin put him to work in his construction company, and my brother really quickly learned that that wasn't what he was wanting to do. That's freaking hard, hard work, and so he came back to school and studied hard, and now he's flying airplanes. So it all adds up and all works out in the end, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the airplane thing, like one of my buddies, he was a C-5 flight crew engineer. Like, he was doing the biggest airplanes for the Air Force, and he also did some C-130 stuff. And he said that's what he was going to do, and he did it. And I had another friend who said to me, I'm going to be a helicopter mechanic in the Army, and he was. So some people just went right for that one thing, and that's what they thought. For me, I always felt like I need to see what's in those movies. I need to discover this. I'll do some service, and then I'll get out. And then joining the Navy had its advantages. I didn't really see myself as a lifer because I had already done more than a lifetime's of service by growing up on an Army base from age 3 to 19 and then joining the service. So technically about 23 years. I did 6 years in the Navy. Technically about 23 years in the service. You know what I mean? Total. So I got to discover myself outside of this wall, right? Go ahead.
I was saying it's pretty gutsy to do what you did. You knew what you had with the Navy to get out and spread your wings, and now you're working for what was it? The guy's name Habibi?
Oh, Habib. No, that's the thing I do. It's kind of like a hobby thing. It's like not even full work, but it's something I do. I work with very world famous UFC champion, Ultimate Fighter, Habib. And I work with his coach and I help him with the podcast. And I just, by doing that, I said, I can do this too. I'm pretty much retired, but I do this because I can. And, if I talk to people, I've learned this. I've owned businesses. I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. And if I tell someone, hey, let's do this, and yeah, we'll think about it, it becomes like a conversation by the campfire that never manifests. So I've always learned to implement now. There's no in between, and there's no maybe tomorrow, 3 days, because learned that in the Navy. There's no such thing as a good excuse. But a lot of people believe they are, and it's like if somebody's sort of resistant, like, well, I'll get back to you maybe in a couple months. I'm like, what are you waiting for? It's already been 35 years. You think you have equity like next year, tomorrow, I'll be happy when, or I'll be ready when? That doesn't exist anymore. At this point in our life, we're past the 50-yard line. Some of us, some young Cougars or somebody who's watching this is different. They're still young and they're still,
It's definitely personality types too. The guys like you that have a vision and can act on it. There's guys that just has the vision, but no ability to figure out how to do the next step. So they need guys like you around.
Well, I'm not a ask for permission. I'm not a wait. I don't believe in limitations. You learn that from running your own businesses and realizing you got to act now, especially, when you're living life this is not to be monetized or any money made out of it, not that I can see, unless people want to get some coffee mugs with the podcast on it or something, but I'm not going to buy a house with it or get a car or pay for my tires. But I think that ultimately, this whole thing is about reconnecting people, but also as we get older, our memory slips, and it's good to dig that up because it's like a hard drive. It just gets stuffed and stuffed, and you get old hard drive, you put it on the shelf. It's got stuff files you haven't looked for, but you forget how amazing they are. And you have like 6 new hard drives sitting around your house, and like, my computer's full, move it over there. And then one day you pull it up and you're like, oh, wow, this is the good stuff. But you had been chasing the good stuff when you already had the good stuff. You need to go back and appreciate it once in a while. Like fine age wine, the metaphor, right? But
Yeah.
so,
Hey,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I didn't really have a point. Good.
Oh, so you had asked. It just popped in my head. Another funny story about out of the blue things. That guy I was telling you, Mike Albertson, the captain in Florida that got us involved with sailing. So he knew my story about going to Vicenza, and because I always was telling him, hey, let's go to Italy. I'll show you around. And so he's out walking his dog or walking down his road, and he starts talking to one of his neighbors, literally probably four houses down his street. And her husband's a retired Army guy, and they were talking, and she said that she went to school in Italy. And he says, that's funny. He says, I have a friend of mine that went to school in Vicenza. And she goes, what? She went to school in Vicenza. It was Paulette Manzione. Now her last name is Carr, but it's Paulette Manzione. You know the Manziones? They
sound familiar too. I know. So I was there from '72, much as a little boy. Maybe not part of the things. I knew my elementary school peers. And I remember 5th and 6th grade more than I remember 1st, 2nd, 3rd through 4th. As much. But I do know, because that's the years you start thinking and getting your individuality, right? And
right.
I look at it, but I've known hundreds of people, as many people knew me, that have, went through. They were coming through the turnstile of Vicenza. So it's funny. I do this. If my friend watches this, any of my friends from civilian friends, they go, wow, I didn't know you knew that other 1,000 people. Like, yeah, I knew 1,000 people. Like, I really know those Facebook people. They're not fake Facebook people. You know what I mean?
Right.
People that I knew or met in passing or at the King Club or on the football field or on a trip or whatever it was. It's so different now that just that freedom that we had, we can appreciate it. It was before the internet. It was different times. Like, you use your brain. Now we just, let me Google that. But remember having to think for things real hard or try to figure something out or find a book about it, right? It's so crazy.
Well, you mentioned the teen club. That brought back a lot of memories.
That Marco Disco guy was probably your era. I don't know. They'd have that DJ. I brought him up before. Like, he would have the smoke machines and all kinds of stuff and strobe lights. They'd have a little thing that
didn't Bootsy Collins. He DJ'd up there too, didn't he?
I think so. Now that I wouldn't have been old enough to go at that time, but probably. I remember Bootsy was on the track team with my dad. And basketball.
Oh, he was on the football team too. He was a great football player.
Yeah, he was like Superman. I mean, Derek was saying like he felt privileged to hang out with him. What did you guys do? Like summer hire. Where did you go? Did you ever take your own trips with your buddies? Did you take off to Germany or other parts of Italy, like the train?
We did it. We did a ton of crazy things. I guess I think it was a weekend. Dan and I decided. Probably because of one of our jobs we had, decided we were just going to take off and go camping and take pictures at some place. And so we took off someplace in the mountains, camped out and hiked around and took pictures. And I don't think either one of our parents knew where the hell, where we were at really. Probably said that I was over his place and vice versa, but just had a good time. The two of us taking pictures and probably for, Mr. Hakeem's class.
Did you know that Davis? Did you know the Davises?
Davis.
Yeah, they lived up like Monteberico or something. So it makes
I remember Monteberico. That was good times too. One time that I don't remember his last name, but Duffy. He came back from college, and he and I went to Corsica. We just decided to go hiking and backpacking, and we took a train over to Corsica, or took the boat, and then took this little train through the rocks and just toured around Corsica and came back. this, stuff, some of the stuff you did at, I must have been probably 17 at the time, 16, probably 17 at the time. But you couldn't imagine a kid's just hopping on a train and
well, that helped you. That helped you when you became an officer, you joined the military. People were like, what do we do? And you just knew like how to go assimilate into new environments. And people would do that on my ship. They'd be like, we'd land in Hong Kong. Where do we go, Lynn? I go, I've never been here. Yeah, but you get this thing that you know. I'm like, yeah, something. It's just like not sitting there paralyzed that we just get off a port in Korea or Canada or something. I just go.
Yeah, with that, you can figure it out. If it's a matter of you see the phone and it's got this weird contraption on it, the Jitoni, that kind of. When I was in at Comiso, the guy that I replaced, he just was, I said, well, how'd you like your assignment? And for the Air Force, it was a 1-year remote assignment with the cruise missiles, and he says, oh, I hated it. It's terrible. It's the worst place on earth. And I thought, what the hell did I just get myself into? And I asked him, well, where'd you go on? No, I asked, the first question was, when you're stationed over there, do you have a car to sell me? Because when you're going back to the States, you sell your floppy car. Well, he didn't have a car. I said, well, how the hell did you get off base and go travel around? He never once left the base.
Ooh. So, victim of his own circumstances. Like there's people that trapped themselves on there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's if you didn't learn anything other than go out and assimilate, try new things, and meet new people, that was a good lesson.
Who is it that you want to see come on here that you haven't seen yet? Who are you looking forward to hearing from? Like you're curious about their story, because what Facebook doesn't present the story when you're talking to somebody, engaging with somebody, as it's such a flat thing. Like, look, here's a picture. I'm going to put my new car next to my wife who's wearing a nice dress next to our new house. This is us. That's not you. Go on.
Well, Richard was a good one. I hope you get Dan on there, and I guess to tie everything together and have a hoop of a fun time, you got to get Johnny Coe.
I got to get Johnny Coe on it. Oh yeah. So he was your graduating era, right? He was your graduating class?
Johnny was a year or two ahead of me.
Okay.
Oh, another one is Teddy. I ran into Teddy, and I was in D.C. I didn't run into him. I was in D.C. and saw something on Facebook, and I called him up and said, "Hey, Teddy, we need to meet." So he was gracious, and he was working, and I think I was there for the weekend or something, and he came out and hung out with us for a little bit. That was nice of him. So Teddy would be another ambassador that that would be good on here.
You hear that, Teddy? Everybody's saying, "Where's Teddy?" I told you, I offered this to you, sir. He was like, "But I've been an open book." But I'm just going to counter that. I'm like, "You've been an open Facebook. This is not a book. This is a conversation. This, if anything's going to take you down memory lane, there's like different dimensions. I learned this in sales. There's one thing where you have a mailer and they call you. There's another thing when they call them, you cold call them. That's pressure. And one of them's like kind of passive. And then there is a face-to-face meeting. Then you're closer, right? So that's when the sale goes down. It's hard to get somebody to leave their house, drive down to your office, sign a contract. You got to be able to meet them face-to-face. And that's kind of what Facebook is like. It's the one where you're having a phone conversation. Maybe you'll have an appointment. Maybe you'll meet up and so forth. There's really missing there, right? So I think that the communication of this, the reconnecting, and then having, like, I'd eventually like to have you, Rich, and Dan on at the same one. That'd be cool.
Well, you got to get Cavoli on there too, because Cavoli was in the same. That'd be fun too. I could understand Teddy's reluctance to come up here, come on the podcast, because when you had asked me to do it, I thought, oh crap, I don't want to go on there and be on video. Who likes being videotaped or whatever. But you like Richard said, you make it so damn easy. It's a conversation, and you and I spoke before doing this, trying to get hooked up for a good 20 minutes. So
yeah, it's easy. It's not hard. Especially traveling the world, meeting new people, talking to people that that have the same, you have instant rapport. You know who they are. You don't know them. Maybe you didn't hang out with them all the time, or but you passed them in front of the school or the cafeteria or the teen club or the Villaggio bus or the Barrico or could have been anything, a basketball game.
Right.
That's a lot of people have been semi-reluctant, and a lot of people leave there thinking maybe I wasn't that popular. But then maybe people that were popular weren't that popular. They were just feeling it, and they were having a great time with their two buddies, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't really a popularity contest because it's kind of hard to establish. You didn't have a 12-year reign. I mean, yeah, I was there the whole time, but I wasn't like bidding for it to have that on my letter jacket. MPV, most popular Vicenzan. I don't know. You know, that wasn't the goal.
And 40 years or so, later, who cares? It's you had the same experience, and hopefully a lot of folks have opened their eyes to that, that silliness.
Right.
But that's. Oh, let me tell you. I don't know how much longer we have, but I'll tell you one more story.
Good.
That is just so small, the world of Vicenza. So we're playing in Aviano football, and I did something to my hand. I got hurt, and so we go to the doctor, and he puts a few stitches in my hand, and he reads my name. He says Monty Stokes. He says, you're not from Kansas City, are you? And this is a doctor. He didn't know me from Jack. And he says, "Was your grandparents Francis and Mary Stokes?" And I said, "Yeah." And his face went like pale. That it was incredible that he ran into me. You know who that doctor was?
Who?
He delivered me in Kansas City 17 years before.
That's the weird, crossing around, running into each other, magnetic attraction.
It's just well, it gets even weirder because my dad was fervent going to the high school, the wrestling or basketball, anything that was out there. Mm-hmm. And this kid gets hurt on the playing for Aviano, at the gym, and he needed somebody to walk him down to the, help bring him down to the hospital down the road. Well, mm-hmm. my dad helps him go down there, and this is basketball season now from football season. It just happens to be Sharman's son. So there's just so many unique, crazy things that have happened, just intersecting lives and things.
For me, it was funny. Like I got there as a little boy, and we met the Flahertys. And I recently ran into Michelle Flaherty, and I think she might have been there around your time, or you might have been there around her time. And she's doing great, but we were talking. She was my babysitter when I was a little boy, when I was tiny, like elementary school. And I thought you were, or your brother might have been, our babysitters for a weekend or something for me and Sean, because my dad would be like, "Here, take care of him. I got to do this. Here's some extra money." So I remember that, and because we lived farther out, so we weren't like in a Villaggio community where you could just drop your kids off at the house or something, right? But I do know that, talking to them, I thought the Flahertys, because they seem because they're from Boston area or, New England, Mrs. Flaherty looked kind of like my aunt, and they talk like my aunt. I'm a little boy. I go, "These are our relatives. Our relatives live here in Italy." I thought they were our relatives. That's a funny memory because they had the Boston accent, they talk like that. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, we have relatives in Vicenza, but then I later realized not, but.
Well, yeah.
So funny, like we've moved another group of our relatives over here. The things you think of when you're 5, man, it's not the same. But yeah, to go back to that time, a slower life, not a million TV channels. You had books. You didn't want to pick those up. You just want to go. You want to get on a moped or a Vespa or a bike or a train and just go. You just
no cell phones. Yeah. Go down to Del Foger's for a beer and pizza.
Del Foger's is very familiar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was that by?
Bar, Del Foger's, or hop on the city bus and go down to the Piazza di Signori and get an ice cream and
go to the Cave.
Well,
the Cave bar that they have there at the Piazza. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was like, cool, and I was like so impressed of it as a kid. I guess they'd have a lot of Disneyland kind of stuff. I'm like, wow, it's the Cave, and I'm like, okay, there's stuff sticking out. See, now what? Like I was expected to do something like. I'm talking like by a little kid's version, like what the hell? Okay, we're in the Cave. We'll do something, Cave. Like, okay, it's not a carnival ride. Like I would have these weird imaginations as a kid, like something was not what it was.
Well, if it's the same place I'm thinking of, it was a restaurant, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We went there for the reunion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You guys were sitting right outside the Cave. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I called it. It was probably El Grotto or something. I don't know the name of it right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's to me, like I was trying to ask if you were one of my chaperones at the summer camps. It might have been your brother, you know?
What?
Yezlo. Yezlo.
At Yezlo, yeah. I don't remember chaperoning, but I remember going to Yezlo a ton, and I was a lifeguard out there, so I might, or a lifeguard, so we might have gone out there to help out Deuce to do something. With the kids, I could. That's very possible.
That would have been the thing. It's like I remember I went to a lot of camps, man. I went to Boy Scout camping, and some people were in the Boy Scouts with me. The Liskas, Tamora, Norman Wimpy. Does that name ring a bell?
Oh yeah, I remember Norman. Yeah.
Yeah, and did you know the Tamoras too?
I remember Rika. Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah. So they were older. I was in the Boy Scouts. I was probably 3 years behind them, but we'd go on cool camping trips up in the mountains. And yeah, so I remember Norman, and then there's another guy, Xavier Brunson. He's now a general in the Army as well. And he was one of our buddies there. And everybody was older than me, but that was interesting, getting to see that side of that, camping out in the middle of the mountains and stuff like that. That was pretty cool. But then there'd be a summer camp in Yezlo. There'd be another camp that they'd have in Villaggio. It's like, drop your kids off. Everyone's like, hell yeah. Time for vacation. You know what I mean? But people that lived in Villaggio, I think they basically had that built in. There was babysitters next door all the time.
Yeah.
You could take care of something, hey, can you go over to the neighbor's house? Which was kind of the old school stateside way. Probably not so much today. You're not sending your kids to your neighbor's house just because. But that was the way it was back in our era,
Well, it was a pretty confined, safe area. Everybody was military, and there was, if something ever happened, there was always a first sergeant or somebody watching overhead.
How did it feel going into the military after growing up in the military? Like, did you notice, like, this is different now? I gotta be responsible and stuff when I was more free back then. Or did you ever think of that when you had the free pass, like the post pass?
Well, I guess each step along the way, your as the responsibility went up, the fun went down, and the fewer people you had you were able to hang out with and travel with. So yeah, I didn't see that as a big transformation, but it was I appreciated the opportunity to have gone through it, and I'm glad that it's behind me now.
No, for sure.
But it was a lot of eye openers and a lot of lessons learned. It just seemed like a natural progression.
A lot of scrutiny. Imagine you're, Cavoli right now, or some of the other generals that are watching this. And, I know this. I'm just telling you this as the podcaster guy. I've been around it. I know that the higher you go, the more responsibility you have, the more scrutiny you have. So I don't know if they're going to be able to come on here right away. Maybe there's some OPSEC or some other stuff going on where, hey, what are you doing podcasting? But of course I'd never ask anything about movements or any of these, what evil people do. But, it's like, hey, what are you doing the podcast? It's like people were getting scrutinized on their social media and different things depending where they're at in their life. So some people might be private, like, I work for a special company with 3 letters. I can't talk to you. Who knows, but other people pick the life like, yeah, I work at Big Sal's Pizza Place. Good to see y'all. It's like, great. That's the easy one, And so I wonder if like some of the other former people watching this is just like, hey, I'm willing to have you on here. Keep it professional. Keep it military 100. It's all good, But to talk about Vicenza, I know this. The higher you go, I've met, big athletes, celebrities, all kinds of people. A lot of people have, but you realize that they are at a place, a great one is I met Clint Eastwood. All he wanted to do is hang out and get some wine. He wanted to be a dude. He used to be a lifeguard on an Army base before he was the big movie guy that owned the golf course.
Where'd you run into him? Where did you run into him?
We were doing a reality show, and we went to the AT&T golf tournament down there in Pebble Beach. And he was the guy we were trying to interview, and one of the guys that, I was with this former Raider that played in the NFL in Super Bowl. So he was doing a reality show. He's like, oh, you got a camera? I go, yeah, just film. And we went and filmed a bunch of people, but we wanted to get to Clint, and his friends knew Clint, and because they knew his wife. And it was funny. It was this 2 couple that was broken up. Like, I know him more than her. We're going to get the interview for you more. So we were doing something in LA, and we got to call Clint's going to meet you tomorrow. So we go down there, and we'd had a photo pass and I was doing some stuff for a bank. They were going to be on the show. This bank was featuring it, and they were taking really good care of us. But we get this photo pass, and I'm like, that's not enough to get past these cops. I go, use your Super Bowl ring. He's like, here, Super Bowl ring, Super Bowl ring. You know what I mean? And they're like, oh wow, the Raiders, cool. They just let us through, and we get to Clint, and Clint's. I'm like, I know where he is. He's at the top. Everyone's like, oh, I love your movies. You're the best. It's like he just wants to be Clint. So I meet him,
Right.
and I walk up to him like, what's up, buddy? And he's like, hey. He's like, you interviewed me. He's all excited because he feels that energy. The guy interviewed him was like, oh, Mr. Eastwood. Oh, he's all freaked out. I'm like, dude, chill out. It's just Clint Eastwood. He wants to be a guy, you know? So we put it on film. I have it somewhere in my YouTubes. He interviews him. I film it. But afterwards, Clint's like, hey, you guys want to go hang out? Because he was feeling that good old time that passed. Because all this, you know, when you get to the top, when you're a big CEO, when you're a big, you know, businessman or woman, and like you, like if you're there and like Richard and Dan wants to escape from Disneyland to get away to be a guy and take a yacht ride with you to get back to the sweet part, la dolce vita, the good part.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that anybody that's so that high up, Clint wanted to hang out. That guy was too nervous. He's like, oh, we have to go, Mr. Eastwood. And he's back and he's so excited. Oh my gosh, Clint Eastwood wanted to hang out with Len. I don't know what he did. I go, wasn't any magic. It's playground posturing, as I say. Who we were then, hanging out in front of the teen club or in Villaggio, whatever, not who we are at our core, who we've become and strap on responsibility and elevate and mature and become and get better at. That's different. And people are like, well, you're just living in the past. You're not progressing. I'm like, what's 10 more life insurance sales policies going to do for you today, man? Is that really living? You close these deals. If you could see your odometer and it could tell you you've got 10 years left, 8 years left, are you going to focus that hard on, got 23 deals, I'm going to get through the pipeline, or I got to get this project. If we don't get the pipes in the ground, it's all done. We're all going to, you know, unless it's life or death. Some things we get in our heads as we get older and we amplify how important that's supposed to be. And we got to keep that balance, that essence of what we learned. But if we're not around our peers, we're not keeping it at that level, right? We're not staying in that lane. So, you know, there's people that come on here because they just want to be who they are. And this is comfort food for you. It's for them. It's like, you know, there's times in your life you could probably relate to what I just said, where you're at some high crucial, you know, deployment, or in your corporate gig, like the T-21 files needed to be in. I'm just making that up from the Office movie, but you get what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
the older you get, you get something, you know, there's health issues that get in the way too, that makes you realize that, is this worth the you know, being called to DC and the late night calls, or the this or that to do, especially, you know, I think everybody's gone through something.
You could be up there running the jets that react to all the Russian planes coming, and that's your gig for 2 years.
Right.
You're gonna be on high alert. You're gonna be redlining. You called me when we're loading all the bombs to go over to Kuwait. That's different. You know, sorry, I can't make it right now. I'm in a crucial moment where I can't podcast with you. But of course, that didn't exist back then, right? That doesn't exist. It did then, but I'm just saying, I'm using that as a time where you can't leave. You're locked on base. You're committed to whatever you're doing. You're finishing a mission. I get it, you know. And then maybe when you're on leave, you know, you can come back and do this. Go ahead.
That's important at that time to get those bombs on an airplane, but the constant, and like you said, the chasing that buck around. The older you get, and if there's health issues that pop up, I had a little scare. That's what really got me to retire, or to enjoy. I'm fine now, but I had a health issue that it opens your eyes and it brings your attention that who's around you, and is this maybe I need to concentrate in another area.
Well, if you're in a high stress job, health is the first thing to go and the last thing you think about, you know. And it's not just being a super workout person. It's kind of a balance. It's how much stress are you strapping on. It's not how good you are at CrossFit. That's great, but eventually CrossFit's going to kick your ass and eat your joints and beat you down. You got to keep that balance. Go for a walk instead. Do whatever. Watch what you eat.
Without a doubt.
You know, you can try to be the world's most competitive cyclist, but you know, you're not seeing a bunch a 65-year-old's whipping ass in the Grand Tour Le Mans or whatever, right? So keep it real, But
Yeah.
I think that balance and enjoying your life, I'm not saying limit yourself. I'm just saying the mind over matter thing. If you were a special forces or something where I can do 1 million push-ups, all of a sudden your shoulders give out when you're 55. That stuff happens.
Yeah.
But there's people in crucial places right now doing important stuff. I mean, like I think it was Derek talking about, Cavoli having a handler now, right? Because when you're that VIP, you have so many appointments. You need to get run through the day like a president or something,
Right.
or like a mayor. You're very important as a general at that level. And people are like, we need to go to this meeting. We need to take care of this, because there's always something to do, and there's new stuff to react to and solve and do in the day too. It's a very important job,
Yeah, that's amazing. It's a testament to their own, their own fortitude and intelligence. But Diane and Chris and the other guys that have become general officers, that's neat. And their troops I'm sure their troops are glad to have them, level-headed people leading them too.
For some reason, your camera looks a little funky. I don't know if your battery's dying or the connection looks like it's a little off.
Let me see if I can. Oh crap!
All right, let's see what it is.
Is it my battery?
No, it just looks like your signal. You got blurry. You were clear before, and maybe that means the internet signal is a little weak. That could be what it is.
Is it still that way? You're clear on mine.
I'm clear. You're kind of foggy, but maybe the recording will come out. But I'll wrap it at this point, because if you get blurry on you, you're gonna have to tune in to see him clear again.
Well, Lynn, hey, I appreciate you having me on here, and you sure did make it easy. And for whoever's listening, come on, Lynn will make it easy for you.
Yeah, I sure will. And thanks for coming on, Monty. Hope your classmates and your friends see this, and tune in for another Cougarland podcast.